24, and my mom has always believed that the only thing worth pursuing in life is wealth. Not security, not love, not well-being, just pure financial status. And not the kind earned through hard work or genuine achievements. No, she wanted riches tied to prestigious names and exclusive clubs that only accepted generational wealth. Growing up, my birthdays were never simple celebrations. They were networking events. Mom invited kids of CEOs, heirs of real estate empires, and spouses of doctors who vacationed in Monaco. She'd rent luxury cars just to park them outside our modest home. Our actual car? A worn-out sedan she made my dad hide when guests arrived. At 17, I met my first real boyfriend, Leo. He dreamed of becoming a chef, kind, caring, and hardworking. He saved for months to take me out for sushi on our 6-month anniversary. When Mom learned he lived in a small apartment with his family and his dad drove a bus, she exploded. She gave me an ultimatum: break up with him or lose her as a mother. After 3 days of tears, I ended it without explaining why. I just disappeared from his life. After that, I stopped sharing anything about my relationships. Not that there was much to share. Mom spent years spinning lies, telling her friends I was dating finance executives or tech heirs. In reality, I was single. But each lie fed her ego, letting her hold her head higher in her social circle. Things escalated when I turned 21. Instead of backing off, she issued another ultimatum: marry someone earning 6 figures or leave home. No negotiation, no compromise. By then, I didn't even have full access to my savings. She'd helped me open a joint account at 18 and quietly siphoned most of it. When I asked about my college fund, she claimed it was spent on a social advancement seminar, a weekend course for women aiming to marry rich. I sat through it beside a 35-year-old woman openly hunting for a wealthy husband before her eggs expired. My dad? He just shrugged and said, "You know how your mom is." She also sabotaged my friendships. Anyone from a modest background was pushed away. She'd interrogate them, act condescending, or outright tell them they were a distraction. One friend, Nina, whose dad owned a small shop, suddenly stopped replying to my texts. Later, I learned Mom had called her and said she was holding me back. By 22, Mom turned our living room into a matchmaking hub. She hosted dinners with her friends and their sons. Men I had zero connection to, all clearly pressured by their own parents. One even asked my weight before dessert was served. Despite her interference, I built my own path. I landed an internship and later a job at a startup in marketing. It wasn't glamorous, but I loved the creativity and freedom. A week before I was to go full-time, the CEO pulled me aside. Mom had called him, claiming I was just dabbling in work until marriage. At 23, I met Ethan. He was genuine, a freelance artist working on a graphic novel, living in a tiny studio, and passionate about used bookstores. I hid our relationship for 6 months, terrified of her reaction. But she found out. She tracked my phone, showed up unannounced at his place, and called him worthless. She gave me 48 hours. Break up with him and attend a charity gala with a lawyer's son she'd chosen, or leave home. I left. With just $600, a laptop, and a duffel bag, I moved onto Ethan's couch. Her final words: "Don't come crawling back when this fails." For weeks, I crashed on Ethan's futon while freelancing to make ends meet. Mom went silent until she called out of the blue, acting like nothing happened. Over lunch at a pricey hotel, she slid me a folder, a dossier on a 28-year-old private equity guy with 3 properties. Her offer, $50,000 to dump Ethan and give him a chance. I refused. Later, I discovered she'd already planned an engagement announcement at a gala, without my consent. Things spiraled. She harassed Ethan online, sent fake emails to his publisher accusing him of manipulating me, and even planted a tracking device in a gift necklace left at our door. We filed a restraining order. When legal tactics failed, she petitioned for adult guardianship over me, claiming I was mentally unstable. The judge dismissed it, calling her actions an abuse of the system. Undeterred, she smeared me at church, launched a blog full of lies, and even stormed a panel where I was speaking. Through it all, Ethan and I grew stronger. His graphic novel, inspired by our story, became a hit. We got engaged quietly, planning a small wedding with tight security. Mom showed up uninvited, screaming about poverty until police escorted her away. That day, I walked barefoot down the aisle, surrounded by love, not wealth. For the first time, my future was truly mine. After the wedding, Ethan and I settled into our life together, focusing on our careers and healing from the chaos. But my mother wasn't done. She escalated her efforts, turning to social media to paint herself as the victim. She posted long, dramatic threads about how I had been brainwashed and how Ethan was a gold digger. She even claimed I had been coerced into cutting ties with her. The comments section became a battleground. Some people believed her, while others saw through the lies. A few months later, an old acquaintance sent me screenshots of a private group chat where my mother was rallying her remaining friends to expose the truth. She encouraged them to leave negative reviews on Ethan's book and report my freelance profiles as fake. It was petty, but it still stung. The final breaking point. Then came the most shocking move yet. My mother somehow got hold of Ethan's unpublished manuscript, a sequel to his successful graphic novel, and leaked excerpts online, twisting them to fit her narrative. She claimed the story was proof that he was exploiting our relationship for fame. Ethan's publisher was furious. They launched an investigation and traced the leak back to an IP address linked to my mother's home. This time, the legal consequences were real. The publisher sent her a cease and desist letter, and we filed another restraining order violation report. The court took it seriously. She was fined and ordered to stay away from us, physically and digitally. For the first time, she faced real consequences. A glimpse of peace. With the legal pressure mounting, my mother's social circle shrank even further. The few friends who had stood by her grew tired of the drama. Some even reached out to apologize for not seeing the truth sooner. Meanwhile, Ethan's career flourished. His book was optioned for an adaptation, and I was invited to contribute to the script. My essays on toxic family dynamics gained traction, leading to speaking engagements and collaborations with advocacy groups. My father, now divorced, reconnected with me. He admitted he had been complicit for too long and wanted to make amends. We started meeting for coffee, slowly rebuilding trust. The last attempt. Just when we thought it was over, my mother made one final play. She showed up at a book signing Ethan was hosting, holding a sign that read, "My daughter was stolen." Security removed her quickly, but not before someone filmed it. The video went viral, but this time, the public reaction was overwhelmingly against her. Comments flooded in from people sharing their own stories of overbearing parents. Supporters rallied around us, drowning out her narrative. Even a few of her old friends publicly distanced themselves. Moving forward. Today, Ethan and I live quietly, focusing on our work and the life we've built. We don't engage with her anymore. No calls, no responses to her posts, nothing. The legal barriers hold, and the distance has brought us peace. Sometimes I wonder if she'll ever change. But then I remind myself, some people are so consumed by their own illusions that they'd rather burn bridges than admit they were wrong. And that's not a burden I have to carry anymore. As months passed, Ethan and I settled deeper into our peaceful routine. The legal orders kept my mother at bay, but I'd still wake some nights expecting another explosion. Trauma doesn't fade just because the battles stop. Then came the hospital call. A nurse from St. Mary's phoned at 3:17 a.m. My mother had been admitted after a minor stroke. "You're listed as next of kin," she explained. My fingers turned icy around the phone. 24 months of silence, and now this. Ethan drove us through the empty streets. "We'll leave if it gets ugly," he promised, squeezing my knee. The smell of antiseptic hit me first when we entered her room. There she was, smaller somehow, her designer blouse swapped for a faded hospital gown. Tubes snaked from her arms. Her eyes flew open when my shadow crossed her bed. "You came." Her voice rasped like crumpling paper. Not angry, not scheming, just tired. The social worker explained the situation while monitors beeped rhythmically. Mild cerebrovascular event. No permanent damage, but she'd need rehabilitation. When asked about emergency contacts, my mother had given them my name, and only my name. The bitter truth. During her week in recovery, a strange thing happened. Without her usual audience of society friends, without the performative outrage, she started telling truths. How her own mother had traded a scholarship to marry into old money that never materialized. The miscarriages she'd hidden because failures don't impress the country club set. That my father hadn't left her. She'd driven him away years before the divorce. One evening, she clutched my wrist with surprising strength. "I thought if I made you perfect, they'd finally accept me too." The heart monitor spiked as she whispered, "All I did was lose you instead." The uneasy truce. We didn't reconcile. Not in the Hallmark movie way, but we established rules. 1. No discussions about money or status. 2. Therapy sessions before any family gatherings. 3. Absolute respect for Ethan. This one took 3 months to stick. The first time she came to our apartment, a humble one-bedroom she'd have once sneered at, she brought Ethan's book for him to sign. For what it's worth, she said stiffly. You're exactly what she needed. The unexpected turn. Last spring, while cleaning her condo before rehab discharge, I found the velvet binder. Inside were meticulous records. Every freelance gig I'd ever done, printed and highlighted, Ethan's book reviews, sorted by publication prestige, a spreadsheet tracking my speaking engagement audiences, but in the back pocket, a faded ultrasound photo from her first pregnancy, the one she'd lost before me. Written on the back in her looping script, please let this one love me for me. Where we are now. She'll never be the warm, nurturing mother from movies. Some wounds cut too deep for complete healing, but she shows up in her fractured way, mailing Ethan obscure art supplies she reads about in culture magazines, silently sliding a check for my therapy copays across the dinner table, leaving one voicemail every birthday that just says, "You turned out better than I dreamed." 6 months after my mother's stroke, I found myself standing in the community center where she once hosted charity galas, now teaching a writing workshop for low-income teens. The irony wasn't lost on me. Ethan had spray-painted a mural outside, his geometric designs framing the entrance where mothers once dropped off children in designer clothes. The unexpected student. During week 3, a silver Mercedes pulled up at dismissal. My mother emerged in understated slacks, still pressed but from Target, not Chanel, carrying a bakery box. I heard they never get snacks, she said by way of greeting. The teens eyed her warily until she cracked open the box. Who wants red velvet? Later, as we wiped frosting from tables, she nodded at a shy girl in the corner. That one's special, like you were. I followed her gaze to Maria, whose essays about her undocumented parents had brought the class to tears. My mother had noticed. The generational shift. At Christmas, Ethan and I hosted our first family dinner. My father brought his new girlfriend, a librarian who laughed at his terrible puns. My mother arrived early, not to criticize, but to help brine the turkey using a recipe she'd clipped from Bon Appetit. When she pulled Ethan aside, my muscles tensed on instinct, but she just pressed an envelope into his hands. For the art program, she murmured. Inside was a check covering 6 months of supplies for the community center. The full circle moment. This morning, my phone buzzed with a notification. My mother had tagged me in a post, not to boast, but to share. The photo showed Maria accepting a youth writing award, beaming beside my mother, who wore an expression I'd never seen before. Quiet pride, completely unposed. The caption read simply, "Real legacy." Ethan framed the screenshot. It hangs beside our wedding photo, 2 different kinds of miracles. The life we built isn't perfect, but it's ours, and finally, wholly free. The morning sunlight filtered through our apartment curtains as I sipped coffee, scrolling through emails. One subject line caught my eye. Invitation, keynote speaker, Women Redefining Success Conference. My finger hovered over the message. A year ago, I wouldn't have believed this possible. Ethan shuffled into the kitchen, sleep-rumpled and smiling. "You're doing that thinking thing again," he murmured, pressing a kiss to my temple. I showed him the email. His grin widened. "Say yes." The speech that changed everything. The conference hall hummed with energy as I took the stage. Spotlights warmed my face, but it was the sea of attentive eyes that made my pulse quicken. Then I saw her. My mother, seated in the 3rd row, back straight as always, but her hands clutched a notebook instead of her usual designer purse. I spoke about the lies we're told about worth and success, about how love shouldn't come with price tags. When I shared how my mother once traded a necklace with a tracking device for one with a simple heart pendant last Christmas, the audience gasped. But it was the quiet moment after, when our eyes met and she nodded just once, that healed something ancient in both of us. The unexpected collaboration. Afterward, the conference organizer introduced me to a publishing executive. "We've been following your essays," she said. "Have you considered a memoir?" I finished, exchanging a glance with Ethan. She shook her head. "Actually, we were thinking of you two collaborating. A graphic memoir, his art, your words, about rebuilding family on your own terms." That night, We spread sketch papers across our living room floor, mapping our story anew. My mother called as we worked. "I found some of your childhood writings," she said. If you'd like them for research." The unspoken offering hung between us. The book launch. The store was packed on release day. Strangers clutched copies of The Measure of Worth against their chests like armor. In the back, my mother held court with surprising grace, handing bookmarks to anyone who passed. When a young woman approached with tears in her eyes, "Your story made me call my mom after 2 years." I watched my mother's carefully applied lipstick quiver. She reached into her Chanel bag, old habits die hard, and produced a tissue. "The first apology," she told the stranger quietly, "is the hardest, but the second sets you free." Where we are now. The podcast invites and interview requests still feel surreal, but the quiet moments mean more. My father and Ethan rebuilding a vintage motorcycle together in our driveway, finding my mother's detailed, but finally supportive, notes in the margins of my draft chapters, the growing pile of letters from readers who saw their own families in our story. This morning, another email arrived, from Maria, that shy student from the workshop. "Got into Columbia." It read, "Full ride. P.S. Your mom proofread my essays." I looked across our sunlit kitchen at Ethan, at the messy, beautiful life we've built, and realized the story we thought had ended was only ever beginning.